Welcome to Angeles University Foundation, your second home. Lately, things have been really quiet here. The halls are empty, the quad is quiet, the campus is still, sitting calmly amidst the greenery. And we miss having you here, taking us back to the times when everything was okay, when everyone was free to mingle and get in touch without boundaries and learn the Angelinian ways. If truth be told, we would want your school memories to be vibrant and colorful, dynamic, full of life, in the company of your friends and your second family at school. But things are different now. So swiftly, we cope. For now, we leave the confines of this beautiful campus. Maybe let it rest for a while too, to be safer and stronger, despite the distance. In your homes, may you continue to learn and get the best out of what the university has prepared for you. This way, half the battle is already won. By staying indoors, cooking up hearty meals, connecting with your loved ones, making sure everyone is healthy and fit for the new lifestyle, learning something new, building each other up, finding new ways to use your talents, to communicate, to look for proof that life is beautiful despite this. So don't worry, everything will be okay. We're looking forward to welcoming you back here at your second home. Soon, we will win this battle. For in distance, we can be stronger. For now, please keep yourselves safe, healthy, and ready for the new challenges. With God's grace and protection, we'll get ahead. That's the Angelinian advantage. We'll rise above the situation, no matter what.
Sa 53, something like that, slides. Okay. By the way, I am Reynaldo Di Malanta de Guzman. Siguro baka kilala nyo yung mga Di Malanta. Assistant Chief Firearms Identification Division of Crime Lab. A retired commission officer, sabi nga kanina, Lieutenant Colonel in 2012. I used to head the firearms identification for 15 years. And now, after retiring in 2012, I was re-employed again by the Philippine National Police since 2013. And I am happy to inform you that I am about to retire within few weeks. Siguro thereafter, baka makita mo ako sa academe. 33 years as firearms examiner, ballistician. Now, what is the difference between firearms examiner and ballistician? I used to be a firearms examiner, but now I was appointed and attested permanent by the Civil Service Commission as ballistician. Firearms examiner is a uniformed man with training and exposure, the same with that of a ballistician. The only difference is that firearms examiners are the uniformed personnel, while ballisticians are the so-called non-uniformed personnel. I am a certified NAPOLCOM forensic specialist, a regular member of Association of Firearms and Tool Marks Examiners based in Chicago, USA. My trainings are the following. Noong 1978 to 1982, ewan ko, marami sa inyo, hindi pa tao, 78 to 1982, I was then with PC Crime Lab. Okay? And thereafter, joined with, merged with rather INP. So it became PCINP as an OJT or on-the-job training. It took me 4 years to finish such kind of training. Now, I also completed continuous specialized trainings in firearms identification from the PCINP through PC Crime Lab to PNP Crime Lab nowadays. That was from 1989 to 2018, sorry. And then also completed 2 training programs or training session programs of the Federal Bureau of Investigation in Quantico. That was in 2002 and in 2008. So, nagkaroon tayo ng pagkakataon to be with them. Basically, to learn more about firearms identification. And also, underwent the so-called IFFS, Interpol Forensic Science Symposium as resource person in Lyon, France, the headquarters of the Interpol. And then I also completed the training at the National Police Agency, Japan, and also a short course at a training facility in Singapore. As a member of APTE, or the Association of Firearms Toolmarks Examiners, I regularly attend annual trainings. We are obliged to present something relative to our respective experiences. Now, I have already examined several firearms identification cases. Marami na akong puting buhok at sa dami ng puting buhok, yun din ang dami ng mga kasong hinawakan. And then, I have testified both in civil and military courts, including quasi-judicial bodies. And a related function is that madalas resource person ako in various PNP, AFP training courses or training activities among others. And then once in a while, nasa private school ako and state universities para magbigay ng something about my discipline known as forensic ballistics or publicly known as forensic ballistics. The order of my presentation is that I am going to present the mission, functions, and capabilities as requested by you of the PNP Crime Lab in criminal investigation. I will be discussing, maikli lamang, masyadong technical, ballistics and its importance in crime investigation, insight and best practices, how the discipline deals with challenges in firearms identification as requested by you, and the hallmark of forensic evidence. I will be discussing, and I'm proud, happy to incorporate this particular topic, the so-called firearms identification system. And kapag marami pa tayong oras, I am going to include the technical issues, reclassification of firearms pursuant to Republic Act 10591. I am not a lawyer, but during the conceptualization of the Firearms Control Bill and eventually became a law, I was part of the group. As a matter of fact, some of the provisions kinontribute natin at wala silang binago. So there you are. Now, tawag nila rito forensic ballistics. I am not comfortable in referring to it as forensic ballistics. Marami sa academe, sa title ng book, Forensic Ballistics. Now, forensic ballistics, now firearms identification of PNP Crime Lab is one of the 10 core competencies of the crime laboratory. We have presence in all regional offices nationwide. And likewise, we have presence of personnel, the firearms examiners and ballisticians in all these regional offices. And including, there are provincial laboratories, cities with crime laboratory. And so meron kami personnel sa mga yon. But in so far as the NCR or the National Capital Region, we have one laboratory per district. In other words, may laboratory, merong firearms examiners, merong ballisticians. Hello? Am I still with you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Our mission is to provide technical and scientific investigative aid to PNP units, Armed Forces of the Philippines, and other law enforcement agencies of the government, the PDEA, the NBI, and the like, in identifying particular firearm used in crime, used in the commission of crime or series of crimes. As we move forward, papaliwanag ko bakit series of crimes, commission of crimes, and then I included for series of crimes. How could that be? Ano ba yung methodology ang gamit ninyo? Isn't it ang ginagamit lang ninyo bullet comparison microscope? Okay. Insofar as functions is concerned, we conduct examination of firearms, and that is mandatory, of course, part and parcel of our function. Examination of fired bullets, examination of fired cartridge cases, and other fired ammunition components. Kapag sinabi nating other fired ammunition components, other than bullets, other than cartridge cases, anong naiisip niyo? Primaries included. Other fired components, fired bullet, jacket is included. So it is mandatory for us to collect all these pieces of evidence. Now, it is also our function, and as a matter of fact, mandatory to test fire for forensic investigation of all firearms. Lahat ng ebidensyang baril na nakuha sa possession, control of the suspect will be subjected to the so-called test firing. Now, what is interesting to note, gentlemen and ladies, registration. Now, pursuant to Section 15 of Republic Act 10591, Crime Lab, pwede po nyo tingnan sa Google, Crime Lab is mandated to test fire all guns. Sinabi all guns. Individual and juridical. Guns intended for individual licensing, gun intended for registration by local government units, by the Philippine National Police, including firearms, firearms for the Armed Forces of the Philippines and other law enforcement agencies. Now, kailangan pala i-test fire din ang mga yan. Yes, pursuant to the provision of Republic Act 10591, and thereafter, the imaging of the recovered ballistics evidence, bullets and cartridge cases, and collected tests. We will encode both evidence bullets and test bullets into the firearms identification system. As we move forward, I am going to discuss what firearms identification is all about, as provided under the National Firearms Control Program and Republic Act 10591 and its revised implementing rules and regulation. Now, we prepare laboratory report and dalawa ito, prepare laboratory report initially and then the confirm FIS or Firearms Identification System hits and matching results. Okay. And then these pieces of evidence, the documents, specifically the lab report, will be submitted to the requesting party. Gagamitin nila ito as exhibits in filing the evidence in court. And because of that, we expect subpoena for us to stand by our findings, for us to present our findings in court, for us to testify, enlighten the court about the results of the examination. Now, madalas ginagamit ballistics. I am not comfortable in using it to attribute as a term to indicate identification of firearms by means of ammunition part to them. Others are referring to it as forensic ballistics. But as a practitioner, gentlemen and ladies, I am comfortable in referring to it as firearms identification. So in 1990, nung magkaroon tayo ng Republic Act 6975, otherwise known as the DILG Act. Okay? Ang pangalan nun ng aming technical division is ballistics. Other referred to it as or describe it as simply Forensic Ballistics Division. But because of the reorganization and because of the law, pinago natin yung word na ballistics or forensic ballistics into firearms identification. Lahat ngayon ang ginagamit firearms identification. Maging abroad, malaki ang pagkakaiba mga kasama, gentlemen and ladies. Why? When we say firearms identification, it is simply the identification of firearms by means of ammunition part to them. How about the two others? Now, ballistics. Ballistics, the science of motion of projectile, often confused as firearms identification. But sad to note, kung minsan, nako-confuse yung ating mga, specifically, yung mga nasa undergrad, identification of firearms, they will immediately answer ballistics. No, if you're going to look the definition of ballistics sa lahat ng reference material, dictionary, and even books, ang sinasabi, science of motion of projectile. Anong ibig sabihin? Pag-aaral ng galaw ng projectile. What is projectile? Projectile is a metallic or non-metallic object propelled from a firearm. A metallic or non-metallic object propelled from a firearm. Pag-aaral ng galaw ng bullet. Pag-aaral ng galaw ng projectile. From the muzzle of the firearm to from the gun itself to the muzzle of the firearm. There are three types of ballistics. Gusto ko rin i-correct ito. Marami sinasabi nila, there are 4 types of ballistics. Ang sinasabi ng iba, there are 4 branches of ballistics. And surprising to note, gentlemen and ladies, they included forensic ballistics as the fourth type or branch of ballistics. There are only three types of ballistics. One, interior ballistics. Interior is the science of motion of projectile, pag-aaral ng galaw ng bullet while the projectile is still within the firearm. Okay? Mamaya, ipapaluwanag pa natin ng konti yan, pero hindi masyadong malalim. Dahil napaka-complicated nito, it would entail a huge mathematical computation. Now, second is the exterior ballistics. Exterior ballistics or external ballistics, as you may call it, is nothing but study of motion of projectile. Kanina, interior or internal, science of motion of projectile while the bullet or the slug is still within the gun. Exterior ballistics, it is the study of motion of projectile after leaving the muzzle of the gun on its way to the target. And the third type is nothing but the so-called terminal ballistics. Terminal ballistics refers to the effect of the impact of the bullet on the target. Okay. Bigyan natin ng konti linaw yan. There are only three. Now, interior ballistics is the study of what happens within the barrel of firearm from the moment the firing pin. Nung pumalo na si firing pin at tinamaan niya yung primer, to the time the bullet exits the barrel, it is mainly concerned with propellant pressure, acceleration of the bullet while it's in the bore, muzzle velocity, recoil, and also covers the following: ignition of the primer, production of high temperature jet of flame, combustion of gunpowder, production of energy, production of high pressure, velocity of the bullet, rotation and acceleration of the bullet down the barrel, and last, engraving of the cylindrical surface of the bullet. Masyadong technical ito, but as we move forward, meron akong mahahagip sa mga ito. Okay, external ballistics. It's nothing but the study of projectiles or bullets flight after it leaves the muzzle of the firearm. Ano pong na-obserba ninyo dyan? Pumutok, lumabas yung bullet. Ano yung kasama ng bullet? Smoke. Ano kasama ng smoke behind the bullet? Small white particles. Of course, flame. Now, nakakaabot yan hanggang sa target. At ito ay nagmamanifest ng contusion. Ito ay nagmamanifest ng tattooing. Ito ay nagmamanifest ng singeing. Okay, external ballistics. Napaka-importante. But dito sa presentation na ito, I won't discuss this topic, the three types of ballistics. Kinukuha ko ng 1 month, I'm sorry, para discuss. And external is other factors that kasama rito yung gravitational effect, kasama rito yung muzzle velocity, kasama yung angle of elevation of the bullet, kasama rito yung sectional density of the bullet. Masyadong technical, okay? At merong mathematical computation. But it can be done. We don't need huge, complicated mathematical computation. May mga formula on how we going to compute, to know the gravity, the muzzle velocity, the sectional density, and many others, including the sectional density of the bullet, including the air resistance. Now, how about the third? Deals with the behavior of the bullet or the missile or the slug once once it reaches the target. Ano ba yung in-expect natin pag tumama ang isang bullet? Isn't it destructive? Maraming nagiging issue rito. Kung ito'y bilog, ano bang approximate angle of fire? Ano bang possible distance of the muzzle of the gun in relation to the victim? Not relation of the firer against the victim, but it must be the relation of the gun and the victim. So, again, it needs mathematical computation. Now, terminal ballistics is subdivided into two. Yung tinatawag na penetration potential and the so-called wound ballistics. Kailan ba siya tatagos? Kailan ba siya ititatagos? Ano ang nagiging manifestation niya pagka malapit? Ano ang manifestation ng entry wound kapag ka contact fire? Anong manifestation ng entry wound kapag ka distant fire? Ano bang manifestation ng wound kapag ka intermediate distance? Na-assume lahat yan, gentlemen and ladies. Now, again, before nasabi ko, I am comfortable in referring to it, not simply as ballistics, not as forensic ballistics, but firearms identification. Sa korte, ngayon, unti-unti na silang nag-adjust. Anong resulta ng firearms identification? Dati-rate, anong resulta ng ballistics? Dati-rate, anong resulta ng forensic ballistics? Pero today, madalas, pag umupo na yung firearms examiner, what is then the result of your examination? The firearms identification result. Bakit firearms identification? It's but appropriate. Now, ano bang ibig sabihin ng firearms ID? It is a discipline of forensic science which has as its primary concern to determine if a bullet, cartridge case, or other ammunition component was fired by a particular firearm. Of course, we use scientific equipment. Of course, we use the so-called scientific method of examination para maka-draw ka ng conclusion whether yung bullet or cartridge case was fired from the submitted firearm. And it is but appropriate. It is firearms identification. Firearms ID is an indispensable tool in crime investigation involving firearms and ammunition. Napakatagal ko na rin sa serbisyo, no? 33 years as a firearms examiner. Pero kung isasama mo yung aking on-the-job training period, mas mahaba. Okay? It has been rooted in sound scientific foundation. Marami ng nag-research. Marami ng books available discussing about the scientific basis, the way we do the examination. It has long been practiced and accepted as a potent aid in dispensing investigation involving firearms and dispensing justice as proven in so many decided cases. Marami ng medyo nasa incarceration ngayon. Ang isang factor bakit sila nandun, consider ni judge yung testimony ng firearms examiner. In the same manner, the presiding judge also considered the laboratory report presented by the firearms examiner, exhibited and presented by a firearms examiner. It has long been practiced worldwide as a potent aid of dispensing justice. Dito sa atin, doon sa aking preliminary statement, one of the busy, if not the busiest technical divisions. Kayo ang saksi, pagkabukas mo ng radio, Insidente, shooting incident. Pagbukas mo ng internet, insidente, shooting incident. Pagbasa mo ng dyaryo, frontliner, headline, makikita doon, shooting incident. Napakaraming trabaho ngayon ng isang firearms examiner. Kaya nga, sana ma-approve yung request namin sa Department of Budget and Management for additional personnel. Now, what is then the importance of firearms identification? Firearms identification plays an important role in the administration of justice. It has advantage over extracted confessions, direct witnesses, and circumstantial evidence. It is regarded as the highest form of uncontestable and conclusive piece of evidence with utmost legal significance. When we say the bullet was fired from the gun, we are 100% correct and conclusive. Kapag sinabi namin hindi siya nanggaling sa baril, bagkus sa ibang mga baril, o sa ibang baril, likewise, we are 100% correct and conclusive. Marami ng decisions citing the importance of firearms identification. Marami ng technical working groups relative to investigation of firearms-related cases. Sinasite nila yung importance ng firearms identification. Tayo mismo ang saksi kung gaano ito ka-importante. Pag may nakuha ang bullet, ipabalistics. Ang sabi ni Chief PNP, nakuha yung bullet, pabalistics. Nakuha yung baril, ipabalistics. Pagdating sa korte, ano ang resulta ng ballistics? Ano ang resulta ng firearms identification na tinatanong ni Judge? Okay. What is the important thing to do is that, kamukha ng nasabi ko kanina, we have to consider all evidence. Now, the gun itself, importante. Kailangan ba yung baril nandyan? Mas maganda kung nandyan yung baril. Kailangan ba ang bullet nandyan? Bullet may be taken or collected from the crime scene or may be extracted from a victim. Napaka-importante. Parehas na importante. Now, anong importanteng mas mahalaga rito? Collection of all pieces of evidence. Para magkaroon tayo ng entirety, ng complete picture kung anong nangyari. Kung minsan, 2 bullet ang nakuha, it doesn't mean na kung 2 bullet, 2 firearm ang ginamit. Pwedeng 1 baril lamang o 2 baril or wala mismo sa nasabing na-recovered na baril or collected na firearm. Things like that. Now, collection of firearms evidence is important. Talking of firearms identification evidence, sinasabi kanina, baril, importante. Fired bullet, tinatawag nating slug. Tinatawag ng ibang investigador na slug. Fired bullet, fragment. Fired cartridge case, or empty shell or casing, and other fired ammunition components recovered from crime scene, or bullet and fragments retrieved from body of victim for examination to identify particular firearm used in crime or series of crimes. So anong message doon? Particularly sa SOCO, particularly sa crime scene investigator, collection of all firearms identification evidence. Pero kung minsan na-process na, kung minsan may nakukuha pa rin kapag pinasadahan mo yan, kailangan uulit-ulitin mo yan, i-apply mo yung appropriate search method upang walang maiwan na ebidensya. Now, confronted with this situation, what if ang natanggap lamang a fired bullet? What are you going to do? And what do you expect your crime lab to do? Walang baril, walang basyo. Noong mga unang araw, no? Take note of this one. Noong mga unang araw, kapag bullet lamang, walang basyo, walang baril, all an examiner or a specialist can do is to determine the caliber. Anong kalibre niyan? Caliber, make, pwede pang ma-establish yung make, model. Okay. Anong klaseng bullet yan? Ito ba'y soft point? Ito ba'y hollow point? Saan ito nanggaling? Walang baril, walang basyo. Noong araw, inuulit ko, ang nasasabi lamang ng specialist o firearms examiner, ina-identify lamang niya anong klaseng bala, anong kalibre. And based on the rifling characteristics, saan siya posibleng nanggaling? Caliber 38 with 5 lance 5 grooves right twist, 6 lance 6 groove left twist. Nung araw, inuulit ko, yun lamang ang pwedeng sabihin ng isang specialist or firearms examiner in the absence of a firearm. Now, what if basyo lamang ang nakuha? Pareho rin. Nung araw, i-identify lamang ng specialist or firearms examiner anong klaseng basyo. Ito ba'y pang-revolver or pang-pistol? Anong kalibre? Anong posibleng make ng baril ng pinanggalingan? Nung araw, ganun lamang ang nasasabi ng isang specialist or firearms examiner in the absence of firearm. Now, ammunition. Anong magagawa mo dyan? Walang baril. Ammunition lamang. Nakakuha si Mr. Investigator o si apprehending officer directly from the control and possession of the suspect. Isang bala lamang. Pwede ba siyang filean ng illegal possession of ammunition? Nung araw, nung wala pa yung Republic Act 10591, ang pinagbabasihan pa lamang Presidential Decree 1866 and then it was amended by Republic Act 8294. Pwede ba siyang sampahan ng kaso for illegal possession of firearm? Nung araw, in the absence of firearm and other firearms identification items, ang sasabihin lang ng firearms specialist or a ballistician, a civilian, ito ba'y serviceable? Importante ito. Paano mo mapapatunayan na ito isang live? Kaya sabi ng nakuna ng bala, ito isa lamang anting-anting. Amulet ko lamang ito. Binubulsa ko lamang ito. Hindi na ito'y puputok. And then sinampa ng illegal possession of firearm. Again, the said confiscated item has to be forwarded to crime lab for examination by a firearms examiner, specialist, or a ballistician para alamin, alin, kung ito'y merong complete component. Ano ba ang complete components ng isang live cartridge? Paano ba natin masasabing live ang isang balang nakuha? Pag ito'y may bullet, pag ito'y may basyo, pag ang primer niya intact pa, wala siyang firing pin impression, at kung tinimbang kasimbigat ng isang live, and then masasabi ng isang firearms examiner or special or ballistician, yes, Your Honor, it is considered a live ammo. Pero it is debatable. Why? Ito bang laman niya buhangin or gunpowder? Hindi na-examine. Apparently, gunpowder. Ito ba'y nagkaroon ng chemical analysis. Ito ba'y gunpowder? Well, hindi umabot doon. And for all you know, maging yung mga manufacturer, ang issue rito, kung itong isang bala ay puputok pa or considered live. Yung component niyang bullet, basyo, primer, gunpowder, nandun lahat. Pero kahit na kumpleto ito, mind you, maging yung manufacturer, sinasabi niyang meron pa rin 0.0001% yung posibilidad na ito'y hindi puputok. Ika nga, ito'y na-classified bilang isang factory defective ammo. So ito'y nakakarating kung saan-saan, ito'y nagagamit ng kung sino-sino, kaya ito'y questionable. Sinabit ng police for examination. Sinabi ng firearms examiner, ito'y live. Yes, live nga ito because meron siyang complete components. Pero mind you, gentlemen and ladies, hindi pa rin safe to say na ito'y puputok. Ito'y live or puputok pa. Ang sinasabi lang namin, considered live and serviceable. Now, sa firearm, binigay yung firearm, walang bullet, walang basyo, walang live. What do you expect your crime lab to perform? We will test fire the gun. We will check whether it will fire or not, whether it will fire or not, whether it is functional. Ingredient ito sa lalong-lalo na ngayon, sa batas natin ngayon, sa 10591. Pero sa 8294 and 1866, baril lamang. Kino-consider na lang itong isang illegal na item, lalong-lalo na, particularly kung walang lisensya. So, but with the advent of Republic Act 10591, lahat ng yan nagbago na. Now, dealing with challenges and how we support investigating units solve firearms-related cases. Reality, again, ang daming barilan, ang daming shooting incident, ang daming cases perpetrated allegedly by motorcycle riding criminal. Kaya ngayon, ang dami naming backlog. Ang daming for examination. Yan ang reality. Hindi man yung mga firearms examiner, kailangang isagawa yung examination. Kailangan ng investigador yung resulta upang makapag-file ng kaso sa korte. Okay, next. Maraming ginagawa yung gobyerno. Proliferation of guns, maraming loose firearms, maraming illegal firearms. Pero anong government interventions? Nagbigay ng executive orders granting amnesty to those individuals holding or keeping unlicensed firearms. Inilabas nila yung Executive Order 585, Executive Order 585-A in 2007, naging successful. Sinundan ito ng Executive Order 817A, implemented in 2009, again, naging successful. Now, gusto ko lang bigyan ng emphasis dito sa government initiatives na to, lahat ng baril, in-apply for amnesty programs, tinespire po natin. What is then the purpose of doing the testing? In order to obtain test bullets and test cartridge cases. On top of that, we stencil the firearm. Kinukunan namin yung stencil ng kanyang make, model, serial number, including the proof mark. Lahat yan nasa isang tinatawag na stencil certificate. In addition to the pocket where we place the test bullets and test cartridge cases for future reference. Now, lahat yan, naiputok yan. Now, in relation to National Firearms Control Program, ito rin ang sinasabi, dapat lahat ng baril duman sa crime lab, itetest fire, i-stencil, para makakuha tayo ng testing certificates of these guns, test bullets, and test cartridge cases. Now, in 2013, lahat yan dinagdagan na institutionalize yung aming trabaho with the passage of the so-called Comprehensive Firearms and Ammunition Regulation Act in 2013, known as Republic Act 10591. Now, sana magkaroon pa tayo ng oras, maraming issue akong pwedeng i-share sa inyo at marami kayong dapat itanong dyan. Now, ito pa yung nakapending na trabaho, General Firearms Amnesty Program under Republic Act 10591. Unfortunately, gentlemen and ladies, hindi pa po implemented yan. Pero nasa batas, dapat siguro maybe or eventually ito'y kanilang i-implement. Anong punto rito? Kaya ito'y nasa amnesty, kaya ito'y Republic Act 10591, kaya ito'y National Firearms Control Program, kaya ito'y executive orders na nagsimula na kaming mag-test fire ng mga baril. What for? Kasalukuyan, we are on the process of establishing database, reliable database of bullets, test bullets and test cartridge cases of all firearms. Now, what makes identification possible? What is then our basis in that so-called firearms identification? Now, ito ba'y science? Is it a science or art? Siguro sa undergrad, nagkakaroon pa ng argument yan. It is a science. Now, what makes a firearm different from the others? Makikita mo dyan, we have, sa picture, meron 20 guns. Anong difference nila? 20 guns. Obviously, pare-pareha sila ng pistol. Obviously, pare-pareho sila ng make. Pagka sinabi mong make, Colt, Smith & Wesson, Taurus. Obviously, pare-pareho sila ng model. Model 1911, 1911A1. Pero itong mga ito, Gold Cup, Mark IV, Series 80. Pare-pareha silang Gold Cup from Colt. Pare-pareho silang caliber. Lahat sila caliber 45. But, ang tanong, what makes a firearm different from the others? Ano pagkakaiba nila? Ang sasabihin ng isang pilosopo, sir, the difference is that, the only difference, obvious difference is the serial number. Tama. But what makes a firearm different from the others, other than the serial number? The data exists. Data exists. Every crime gun has a story to tell. No two firearms are microscopically identical. No two firearms are microscopically identical. Wala raw dalawang baril na microscopically identical. The basic principle is that every firearm leaves microscopic defects or individualities on every bullet and cartridge case fired through it. Anong ibig sabihin nito? Ibig bagang sabihin yung bang mga baril hindi talaga pulido? Hindi ba talaga totally polished? Hindi ba talaga totally smooth? Every firearm leaves microscopic defects. The answer would be yes. Obviously, makikita mo, smooth sila, but if you're going to use kahit na hand lens lamang with sufficient magnification, tingnan mo yung bore. tingnan mo yung breech space, it would reveal the fact that it is not indeed a perfect one. Sa panglabas na kaanyuhan, pwede ka magsuklay sa kinis, sa kintab. Pero if you're going to inspect the bore, the inside of the barrel, you would notice several microscopic defects or individualities. Ano bang inasahan natin? Pag pumutok yung bullet, lahat ng defects na ito magmamanifest on every bullet passing through it. And that is correct. Every firearm are individually distinct. The bullets and cartridge cases which it fires are imprinted with this individuality. The imprint on all bullets and cartridge cases fired from the same firearm are always the same, while those bullets and cartridge cases fired from different firearms must always be different. Ang sinasabi rito, individualities. Ano ba ito? Nabanggit din ni Madam Lynette kanina, kung meron sa question document, meron din sa firearms identification. Individual characteristics are those characteristics that are determinable after the manufacture of the firearm. These are essentially microscopic defects na kahit na pinakinis na nila halimbawa yung bore, yung kaloob-looban ng barrel, nagkakaroon ng swabbing ito, nagkakaroon ng pabalik-balik yung kanilang swab doon upang pakinisin. Umiiral pa rin yung katotohanan, gentlemen and ladies. Hindi mawawala yung manufacturing defects. Manufacturing defects. Manufacturing microscopic defects. There was no intention on their part to produce such defects. On the other hand, nabanggit din kanina yung tinatawag na class. So firearms identification, there is also such a thing as class characteristics. Ano itong mga ito? Class characteristics are those characteristics that are determinable prior to the manufacture of the firearm. Kamukha dito. Ano bang magiging forma ng baril? Class yun. Ano bang magiging haba ng baril? Class yun. Ano bang magiging caliber? Class yun. Ano bang magiging trigger pull? Class yun. Ano ba yung pattern ng ejection ng empty shell? Class yun. Ano ba yung rifling characteristics? Class yun. So, itong baril na ito, mga baril na ito, pwede silang ma-examine. We will check the so-called individual and class characteristics of these guns. Kung pareho sila ng class characteristics, we will focus on the so-called individual characteristics that will make them unique. Okay? Every firearm are individually distinct. The imprint on all bullets and cartridge cases fired from the same firearm are always the same, and those bullets, cartridge cases fired from different firearms must always be different. Yung mga nasa undergrad, siguradong kabisado na nila ito. At ito yung basic principle bakit nakikilala itong baril na ito nanggaling dyan, kasi hindi lamang siya parehas ng class, pero pareho rin siyang individual characteristics. Maybe itong lahat ng baril na yun, yung 20, pareho sila ng class, pero magkakaiba sila sa tinatawag na individual characteristics. The presumptive approach to the investigation of gun crime, there is abundance of data inside and outside every crime gun. There is abundance of data inside and outside every crime gun. When fully exploited, this data can be used to generate actionable information of tactical and strategic crime-solving value. Ano pong ibig sabihin yan? There are two valuable crime-solving information outside the gun. Outside the gun, refers to the identifying marks and nomenclature, pangalan, Colt, Smith & Wesson, Taurus, Llama, etc., etc., such as model 1911 A1, 1911, 1911 A3, and serial number, and many others. Lahat po yan, lahat ng information na yan, makikita saan? Outside the gun. Kahit hindi ka examiner, ang baril na ito, nakalagay rito caliber 45. Ang baril na ito, nakalagay rito Colt. Ang baril na ito, nakalagay ganitong serial number. Ito pala isang ganitong klaseng baril. Lahat yung baril ay yung information na yun, nakikita sa panglabas ng isang nasabing baril. Pangalawa, inside the gun. Refers to the marks transferred to fired ammunition components, bullets and cartridge cases during firing, during discharge process. Now, outside the gun, nakuha ni investigador, ni Mr. IOC, investigator on case. Gusto niyang makilala kung sinong may-ari. Kunin lamang ang serial number at i-verify sa Firearms and Explosives Office. Kanino ba nakarehistro yan? Itong nasabing baril ng kanyang make ay isang Taurus. Ang serial number ay ganito. And then, meron naman database sa Firearms and Explosives Office ng Civil Security Group ng Philippine National Police, lahat ng pangalan na nagmay-ari ng iba't ibang klaseng baril. And from there, malalaman ni Mr. Investigator on case kanino baril. Paano nakilala? Outside the gun. Now, inside the gun, kanina outside the gun, ngayon inside the gun. Sa loob makikita mo yung rifling. Rifling consists of lands and grooves. Elevated channels are the so-called lands. Depressed areas are the so-called grooves. Ito yung nakikita sa loob ng baril na tinatawag nating bore inside the gun. But wala kang makikitang obvious na defects. Wala kang makikitang obvious na defects. Ang bullet na dadaan sa kanya, alin ang mas malaki? Yung bullet diameter o yung kanyang bore or butas na kanyang papasukan? Mas malaki ng bahagyang-bahagya yung bullet diameter. Okay. Kaya paglabas ng bullet, fired bullet, makikita mo yung land impression, makikita mo yung groove impression. The rifling characteristics will be imprinted on the periphery of every bullet coming from it. Kaya makikita mo kung ito 6 slants, 6 groove, right twist, mabibilang mo na kagad. But can we individualize the firearm using the land impression, the groove impression? Hindi po natin pwedeng i-individualize. Now, nabanggit ko kanina, if you're going to check the bore inside the barrel, even a handless, kung may microscope, mas maganda. It would, again, reveal the fact, ng katotohanan, that it is not indeed a perfect one. You will notice the presence of nicks, hills and valleys, defects, parang talim ng lagari, ngipan ng lagari, maliliit. Yan ang makikita mo if you're going to use a microscope or even a magnifier with sufficient magnification. Ano ang ano diyan? So what? Anong ano diyan? Anong maganda riyan? Saan pwedeng pakinabangan yan? Now, look at this one. A highly magnified picture of a fired bullet. Yung nasa taas niya, land impression. Ang nakikita mo sa baba, actually 2 bullets divided by a dividing line, by a hairline, running from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock position. Horizontal, vertical rather. Left side of the hairline or the dividing line represents the evidence. Right side of the dividing line represents the test. Now, look at this one. Hello, are you still with me?
Yes po, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
thank you. Now, again, merong dividing line, vertical line. Left is one bullet, evidence. Right side of the hairline is another bullet, the bullet that was recovered from the crime scene or from a victim. Now, look at the intermarriage of microscopic lines from the evidence left side crossing the dividing line extended up to the right side. Nakikita ninyo? Okay. It's an indication that these 2 items, the evidence and the test was fired from the suspected gun. Evidence was recovered from the victim or from the crime scene. Kapag ka ganito yung nakikita ng specialist, meron na siyang initial conclusion. Yung possibility that these 2 items were fired from one firearm, napakataas. Now, you have to consider the 360 degrees of the bullet. Paano kaya yung second land? Paano kaya yung third land? Paano kaya yung fourth land? Paano kaya yung fifth land? Paano kaya yung pang last land? Meron din kaya. Paano kung 1 land and 1 group lang? Can we come up with a lab report stating positive findings? But my point here, basihan. Those are the so-called individual characteristics of the firearm na nagmanifest not only on the test na nasa right, including the evidence bullets nandun. Okay? We have to meticulously check the 360 of the bullet. And then pagka lahat nag-jive, nag-intermarry, nagmamatch lahat, then walang kaduda-duda. These 2 items, the evidence and the test, were fired from one and the same firearm. Kung itong nasa kanan fired or tested from the suspected gun, then the evidence was fired from the submitted firearm. Tawag natin dyan, individual characteristics. Yung nasa taas, yung blue, yung may background blue, ang tawag natin land impression, groove impression, direction of rifling toss, those are nothing but the so-called class characteristics. Hindi pwede nating ma-identify yung i-individualize yung weapon or firearm basing only on the class. It must be a collaboration between the class and individual. In that particular case, we got the gun. Now, look at this one. Kanina bullet, shell naman ito. Now, we have here a slide and the firing pin hole. Diyan sa firing pin hole, yung mga microscopic defects na nakikita, ang tawag sa area niyan, breech space. Breech space of the breech block. Now, nasa kaliwa niya, no, ng butas, kanan ng butas, yun ay extractor. Yung groove na nasa ilalim, yun ang ejector. Lahat yan nagmamanifest on every cartridge case coming from it. Now, as a result of tremendous pressure, for instance, caliber 45, magpuproduce yan ng 19,000 pounds per square inch. Pressure not only to push the bullet forward, but to drive. But since the pressure is being distributed randomly, it does not tend to push only the bullet outward. But considering it's random, a portion of the pressure will drive the cartridge case, yung basyo, violently against the firing pinhole or the area na may nakikita kayong machining mark na tawag natin breech space mark. Tatama yung primer dyan. Lahat ng microscopic imperfection present on that area will be imprinted on the base of a cartridge case. In the same manner, yung extractor na nando sa right side ng firing pinhole, hindi rin smooth yun. Meron ding microscopic defects. It will continuously produce the same markings, unusual markings, unique lamang sa kanya. And so the ejector will also produce unique markings. Now, we have here the evidence in the test. Nakuha natin yung picture na yan sa ating tinatawag na Firearms Identification System. On your right or left is the evidence. Look at the firing pin impression. Looking at the test on your right, tingnan ninyo yung firing pin impression. Look at the totality of the impression of the so-called microscopic defects produced by the breech space of the firearm. Lahat parang stampad yan. Parang stampad yan. Lahat ng makikita mong defects, mag-stamp sa bawat basyo, kahit na ilang beses pa yan, patuloy na mag-imprint sa basyo, particularly sa primer cap. At tawag natin yan mga individual characteristics, potential for firearms identification. We can use those markings to individualize the weapon. Now, look at this one. Firing pinhole on your left and on your right is a fired primer. Makikita mo yung firing pin impression. Nagmamanifest yung formation of the firing pin. So much so the impression of the breech space nagmamanifest. Parang istampad yan. Lahat ng microscopic defects na nandun sa tool magmamanifest sa bawat basyo na puputok sa kanya. At yung nasa baba, 2 breech space marks, evidence of the test. Look at the vertical line, thin line, dividing the two shells. Left evidence, right is the test. Look, check in the intermarriage or the intermarriage of horizontal lines from the evidence crossing the dividing line extended up to the test. Maging dyan, masasabi natin, these two items, the evidence and the test, no doubt, were part from one and the same firearm. Now, we have to test the gun. Sa crime lab, gumagamit na tayo ng water tank. Pero sa kanan, makikita nyo yung testing tube. We use testing tube in firing high-powered firearms and rifles. Whereas sa water tank, we use this tank for handguns, revolver, and pistol. Again, what for? We test fire the gun after observing mandatory procedures. Duman na yan kung ano nung examination. Kailangan na i-test fire. The purpose is to obtain test bullets and test cartridge cases. Many? 3. 3 bullets and 3 shells. Pero kapag nasira, we have to replace damaged tests. Now, in the conduct of examination, we use this bullet comparison microscope. Natutuwa ako at ang gamit namin yun, nung bago pa lang ako sa crime lab, yung tinatawag na BL, bouncer lamps. Antiquated na ang kaninyang na-design siya noong 1925 ni na Osborne. Then ginamit ni Colonel Calvin H. Goddard. Pero ngayon, nakakatuwang isipin na malaki ng pinagkaiba, malayo ng ating inaabot at ganito na yung ginagamit ng PNP Crime Lab. Makikita natin yan sa national headquarters at lahat ng regional offices at lahat ng ating district offices dito sa National Capital Region. Ito'y pwede siyang i-operate na automatically. Meron kang selection, meron siyang command, meron siyang joystick, meron siyang nakakonekta rin sa isang computer, nakakonekta rin siya sa tinatawag nating Firearms Identification System. So yung nakikita mong archive images Firearms Identification System, pwede mong i-compare sa live item under this bullet comparison microscope. Now, we follow these scientific examination procedures. We identify, we state the problem, we address the so-called technical issues in firearms ID, we collect data, we do experimentation, kino-compare namin yung the land impression, the groove impression, we formulate hypothesis, ito kayang bullet pumutok dito sa baril na ito, and then we will come up with experimentation. We will collect data, test for comparison with the evidence. We will perform the so-called microscopic examination and analysis. And then kapag yung pinakita kong picture kanina, it has to be validated by senior examiner, as peer, and then for approval by the division chief. Yung about the conclusion and findings of the report, of the examination report. Now, in addition to that, after this, yung A, yan ang tinatawag na initial microscopic examination. Nakakuha ng bullet, nakakuha ng basyo, nakakuha ng baril. We do follow the so-called scientific method of examination. Now, kung baril, halimbawa sa A, meron kang baril, we will test fire the gun. Ang inaasahan natin pagka nakakuha ng baril yung si Mr. Investigator from the suspect, papailan niya ito ng illegal possession of firearm. Tapos na po yung mga panahon na yon. Sa ngayon, with our present capability and value, meron tayong database ngayon. Encoded na image na, nasa server na, nasa database na, ng Firearms Identification System, lahat ng ating test fire na baril for registration, lahat ng nakukuha sa crime scene. Okay, bullet lamang. Balik natin sa bullet. Ito kaya ang bullet. Wala nang baril na nakuha, bullet lamang. I-encode ito sa B. Encoding of bullet in the FIS4 correlation. Ito kaya ang bullet ito hindi magmamatch sa test ng mga ebidensyang nakuha sa iba't ibang crime scene? Pangalawang tanong, ito kayang bullet na ito hindi magmamatch sa test ng mga natested ng baril? Yan na po ang mga usapin ngayon. So, sa una, we follow scientific method of examination. But after the conduct of scientific examination procedures dito sa B, we will encode the subject items in the so-called firearms identification system. What for? For correlation. I-encode, i-image ng machine, kokopyahin not only the class characteristics of the bullet and of the shell, but including the individual characteristics of the bullet and of the shell. Ipapasok niya sa tinatawag nating database for future correlation for possible matching. So, marami ng mga success stories relative to this one. But nonetheless, we follow scientific methods of examination. Now, in addition to that, it's also mandatory on the part of every examiner nationwide. We see to it that we mark evidence. We see to it that we mark evidence. Natatandaan ko pa, madalas ako mag-testify kay Judge Peralta na Supreme Court Justice ngayon. Pag nakita ka ni Judge Peralta, nandito yung tiga-crime lab, unahin na natin siya. And then, ang isang tatanong, meron bang marka yung mga ebidensya? Meron bang mga marka? How do we mark the evidence? Okay, there you are. Meron tayong dalawang base, reference points. One, base, and on the nose. Ano ang i-engrave? Ano ang ilalagay? I-engrave yung initials of the recovering officer, either sa nose or on the base. What for? Again, for future reference. What made you conclude, Mr. Investigator, that the bullet examined by the specialist, by the firearms examiner, or the physician is the same bullet that was submitted by you for examination? I am sure, Your Honor, because I have my markings. Etching. Ini-etch yan through stylus. Ini-engrave yan sa base. Kung ang initial mo si Fernando po, kung ikaw si Fernando po Jr., FPJ sa base. Kung comfortable ka, kung si right on base, you can place your markings on the nose, FPJ sa nose. But not the periphery, not the bearing surface, because that area is the reference point for examination. That bearing surface is the so-called area that receives the so-called class and individual characteristics of the firearms imprinted on the bullet. Yan ang aming tinitingnan maigi. So, kung walang markings, we do not accept the evidence. Instead, we advise the investigator to mark first the item. Paano yung mga SOCO-collected items? It should be the SOCO. It must be, rather, the SOCO personnel na dapat mag-markings sa nasabing items. Sa bullet, either sa base or nose. Now, how about shell or cartridge case? Inside, outside the mouth, or outside, near the mouth. Sa live, sa body. Again, the same purpose for future identification. Di ba natatamper mo yung evidence? No. Sa tagal na panahon, itong hinahanap ng mga judges. Ang mahirap kang pag ikaw ay nagmarka sa bearing surface. Sa rifling marks ka nagmarka. Dapat magmarka doon sa smooth area. Either base or nose of the bullet or body of near the mouth of the shell. Maliit lamang. Anong gagamitin mo? Stylus. Anong i-etch mo? Your initials. Pwede bang gamitin initials yung initial ng victim? It can be. Kaya lang, ipapaliwanag mo rin kaninong markings itong mga ito. Initials of the victim Your Honor. Initial of the victim, sure. In addition to that, after marking, we place the item separately inside plastic packet. Makikita niyo sa loob, merong a white band paper containing information as to the recovery, circumstances as to the recovery of the bullet, time and date, sino nag-recover, including the markings adopted by the investigator on case are all reflected on that small white envelope. Now, if you don't have this plastic packet at medyo meron kang vial, you can place the item, the evidence bullet, with your markings and come up with a small envelope, bond paper containing those information inside a vial. Now, we mark the bullet as well. For firearm, pistol particularly, we mark, it is mandatory at inahanap yan ng mga ng mga judges. Binamarkahan yan either sa barrel, kung anong ilalagay, initials of the recovering officer. Kung ang pangalan mo, Reynaldo, Balanta, de Guzman, RDG sa barrel. Ayaw mo sa barrel, slide. Ayaw mo sa slide, sa frame. Maliit lamang. Hanggat mari nga, itatago mo. Okay? Sa revolver, you can mark the item, revolver, on the barrel, cylinder, and the frame. Anong ilalagay mo? Your initial. In open court, the judge expect that they will ask such markings. Meron ka bang markings, Mr. Investigator? In addition to the serial number. Isn't it the best identifying markings would be the serial number? Tama. Ang sabi naman ng isang judge, paano kung bigyan ka ng 5 baril? Alam pagkakaiba. Pati numero 1, 5 baril. Without your markings, how are you going in open court identify the particular gun personally taken by you from the control and possession of the suspect? So, meron po akong markings, Your Honor. I adopted my initials. I etched my initial on the barrel. Ayaw mo doon sa barrel. In addition to that, I also etched my initial on the cylinder and the frame. Now, how about an M16? Ang sabi nila, Armalite daw. Ang sabi nila, ang gumawa nito si Armando. Ewan ko, liwanag ata yun. It was designed by Eugene Stoner while he was connected with Fairchild Engine and Airframe Company in Costa Mesa, California. Then magkaroon na ng variation. Una, mahaba yung baril natin dito, pero yung iba, pinaputol nila. Yung mahaba, M16, AR-15. Pero nung pinaputol, sabi niya, mas maganda yung baril ko kasi sa baril mo. Ang baril ko, may na. Anong tawag dyan? Hindi na M16? Ay, ito nga yung baby Armalite ma. There is no such a thing as baby Armalite. Yan ay, once you cut off the barrel, once you sewed off the barrel, it becomes a carbine. It becomes a carbine. You sewed off the barrel of a shotgun, you sewed off the barrel of an M16, you sewed off the barrel of a caliber 308 or M14, it becomes a carbine. Okay? Carbine is a short barrel rifle. Carbine is a short barrel rifle. Ngayon, saan natin mamarkahan? Barrel, bolt, upper receiver, and the lower receiver. Yung upper receiver, yung mayroong handle, yung may charging handle. Lower receiver, ito yung malapit sa sinasaksakan ng ng magazine, and of course the barrel. Now, dalawa will do as long as you can identify in open court na this is the same firearm that was personally confiscated from the possession and control of the suspect. What made you sure, Mr. Witness? Of course, the serial number, the same serial number, but because of your identifying markings. In addition to that, we attach tag containing DTPO, circumstances relative to the discovery, the collection, firearms information, lahat nakasulat doon, including the adopted initials by the recovering officer. Now, today, Crime Lab was catapulted today into a modern technology insofar as the way we perform the so-called firearms identification. From an ordinary comparison microscope, ngayon napunta tayo kamukha na natin yung mga kilalang laboratories worldwide. Now, how could that be? Ang ginagamit nating firearms identification system, ito rin ang ginagamit ng Interpol, ito ang ginagamit ng FBI, ito rin ang ginagamit ng alcohol, tobacco, firearms and explosives, ito rin ang ginagamit ng Australia, ito yung ginagamit ng South Africans, ito yung ginagamit ng Europeans, ito yung ginagamit ng Asians. Ito rin ang actually huli na nga tayo, nauna pa sa atin yung Hong Kong and Taiwan. On one occasion nga, I had the chance to use the tool of the firearms identification system of Taiwan and Hong Kong. Now, I am referring to firearms identification system. Ano ba ito? A system designed to scan, store digital images in 2D and 3D of bullets and cartridge cases and automatically correlate captured images against the previously scanned images of bullets and cartridge cases to look for possible match and establish linkages among these items in the database. Ano ba itsura niya? FIS changes the paradigm, the way forensic firearms examination in our country are done. With FIS, the Crime Lab performs proactive role in addressing basic technical issues in the examination and identification of particular firearm use in crime. Instead of passive, lifetime, painstaking examination through bullet comparison microscope. Nung araw, binigyan ka ni Mr. Investigador ng bullet, ng shell, at binigyan ka rin ng isang baril, pakicheck nga Mr. Specialist, pakicheck nga Mr. Firearms Examiner, pakicheck nga Mr. Ballistician kung itong bullet galing sa baril na yan. Pakicheck nga itong bullet na nakuha sa katawan galing sa baril na yan. Tapos na yung mga panahon na gano'n. Sabi nang i-check nung alaw. Pero ngayon, evidence bullets, evidence cartridge cases, test bullets of evidence firearms, test cartridge cases of evidence firearms, test bullets of firearms, registered firearms, test of cartridge cases of registered firearms, nakukolekta na unti-unti. Hindi pa kumpleto, pero nasa correct or right direction tayo. Marami na tayong data, marami na tayong baril, at ang isang manifestation yan, yung success stories. Nung araw, pag pinailan ng illegal possession of firearm, hanggang doon lamang, baril, kaya pumuputok, kaya hindi, tinutuloy nila yung legal possession of firearm. Ngayon, we play proactively. I-test fire namin yung baril na initially, pinailan nila ng illegal possession of firearm, yung test, in-encode namin sa FIS, itong test, maghahanap siya. Hahalukayin niya yung database. Wala ba akong kamukha rito? Magtatag yan, lalabas yan in gallery. Rank number 1, rank number 2, rank number 3, rank number 4. Rank according to similarities. Yung number 1, most likely, ito na yung lalabas na positive. Okay? Out of the blue, wala tayong kaalam-alam na ito palang baril ni gamit. As at part 1, merong isang kasama noon, medyo nasawi dito sa Pilipinas, hindi ko na ba magitin yung lugar, habang nakaburol, yung bullet na nakuha sa katawan, in-encode sa FIS. Now, true enough, hindi pa na ibuburol itong nasawing uniform man. Na-establish na natin kung kanino baril, tigasan yung may baril, anong status ng lisensya ng baril. Wow! It's magic, parang ganon. Unlike before, pagka may bullet lamang, hanggat hindi natin na isasabit yung baril, hindi nila na isasabit yung baril, hindi natin masasabi kung kanino baril, kung alin particular na baril na galing. Pero ngayon, we perform proactively. Maraming hit, kuminsan iba yung suspect. Kuminsan, tad-tad ng hit, yung test nag-hit kung saan ebidensya. Yung evidence nag-hit sa isang lisensyadong baril. Yung ebidensyang basyo nag-hit sa isang registered lisensyadong baril. Things like that. Tuloy-tuloy, wala mang suspect, pero itong bullet na nakuha sa kanya, sa isang biktima, masasabi natin na galing sa isang baril na ganito. Kung wala sa database, magko-continuously mag-hit yan sa kapwa evidence bullet. Nag-match yung evidence bullet na nakuha sa NCR, nag-match sa Mindoro maybe, nag-match sa Palawan, nag-match sa Cebu, nag-match sa Davao. Nandito na tayo ngayon. And then we prepare lab report for the information of concerned officials for appropriate action. It's like magic. Yung ibang bansa, nag-i-invest pa sila lalo rito, dinadagdagan nila. At napakagandang direksyon. Now, it continuously generates proactive investigative leads. We play proactively, sinasabi ko, nag-match dito, nag-match dun, nag-match dito. Instead of on something else, focus on the matches. Yan ang direction ngayon. Meron tayong crimes database. Lahat ng evidence, bullets and cartridge, ini-encode sa Firearms Identification System. Lahat ng test, bullets and cartridge cases of evidence firearms, ini-encode din sa Firearms Identification System, along with the test bullets and cartridge cases of registered firearms, of licensed firearms in one platform, FIS platform. Now, registered firearm, of course, nandun yung information, kaya nga yung isang nasawi na alam namin, nakita kagad, itong bullet na nakuha sa katawan, nag-match sa registered firearm ng tiga ganitong lugar. Ang baril na ginamit, ganitong caliber, ganitong make, ganitong model, ganitong serial number, ganito yung kanyang registration number, at ito'y mapapasuna sa ganitong panahon. Yun ang mga information na inaasahan natin. Ano ba itsura niya? In addition to the bullet comparison microscope, again, I'm happy to present to you Firearms Identification System. Bullet acquisition scans bullets. Cartridge case acquisition station scans cartridge cases. Lahat ng basyo. And then pupunta yan sa correlation server. And then yung results makikita niya diyan sa tinatawag na analysis station. Ang tawag namin diyan match point. Ina-analyze ng siya ang automatically nagko-correlate. Siya automatically naghahanap ng match or matches. At ina-analyze na lang namin alin ba talaga yung true match. Pag nagbigay siya ng true, alimbawa, napakahirap kung microscope lamang. Look at this one. Meron kang isang bullet. Ang tangan mo lamang, ang gamit mo lamang bullet comparison microscope. Wala kang database. Siguro isa-isa ihingin mo yung mga test. Retired na ako, retired na yung anak ko, retired na yung apo ko, hindi pa niya ma-identify kung kanino baril yung bullet na nakuha sa crime scene or sa victim. Pero today, sabi nga, it changes the paradigm the way we conduct the examination through Firearms Identification System. What does FIS do? It captures, store huge data of fired bullets and cartridge cases, and automatically relates captured digital images, again, database of previously encoded fired bullets and cartridge cases to look for a match, instead of a lifetime search through manual question. Yung nakikita nyong extreme left, yon ang evidence. Candidates, yung after the evidence, priority number 1, priority number 2, bawat column, priority number 3, priority number 4, so forth. Now, ang binibigyan ng consideration yan, yung priority number. Baka malay natin, hindi siya, no? Para bang illusionary matching lamang. Pero, malaking porsyento, no? Na kapag nagbigay siya ng 95%, magmamatch yan. Kukunin namin yung actual na ebidensya na test or evidence. Kukunin namin and then babalik kami sa traditional microscopy examination through bullet comparison microscope, just to confirm the results made by FIS. Success of FIS on cold cases. Dito deliberately, ito yung Luzon, Region 3, NCR, Region 3, NCR, and Region 4A. Tilib po. Okay? Doon sa taas, makikita mo pistol. Kung saan-saan siya nag-hit. Yung revolver din ganon. And so forth. Now, kung minsan, tatlo dyan makakasamang ginagamit. Paano natin malalaman? Yung mga bullets na ito paulit-ulit. Bullets na ito paulit-ulit. Itong basyo na ito paulit-ulit. So, kinlaster namin ang mga yon. Nangyari itong mga kasong ito 2005 to 2008. 2005-2008. Region 3, NCR, Region 4A rather. Ito'y isang classic example ng success ng FIS. Isang cluster lamang yan. Nag-produce ng 40 confirmed hits on cold cases. Matatagal ng mga kaso na walang suspect, matatagal ng kaso na hindi na-file matatagal nang nangyari pero hindi na-file ng kaso. So, when we start using FIS in 2010 and 11, we immediately encoded all our backlogs. Kasama na yung itong mga basyo, mga bullets na na-recover sa mga areas na yan. From Tarlac to area ng malayong lugar ng south, southern part ng 4A. So, in the end, we were able to identify these cold cases, the particular firearm. As a matter of fact, 4 of these guns talagang na-identify na and based on and continuous follow-up, napila na ng kaso, na-recover yung mga yan. At siyempre nakakatuwang tingnan nung makita nating ang punot dulo yung FIS correlation hits. So, you could just imagine 2005 to 2008 hindi na walang suspect. Pero nung na-encode natin sa FIS, sinabi, ito yung mga baril nito na napalisensya nung ganitong panahon. Mga baril na napalisensya ni ganitong individual, ganitong panahon. License number, etc., etc., etc. I won't discuss the details, no? Pero ang pino-point out ko lamang dito, gentlemen and ladies, one cluster of success hits on cold cases. Now, without FIS, magre-retiro na naman ako, pangalawang beses. Hindi pa natin, kahit na yung susunod sa akin, without FIS, hindi natin ma-uncover itong mga ganito. Now, because of that, we were awarded by International Association of Chief of Police ng kategoring Significant Investigative Value in Major Crime because of this one. The PNP was awarded in 2002. Now, ano significant dito? Wala pang 1 year na ginagamit natin, wala pang 1 year na na-commission natin yung FIS, nagbigay na siya ng ganitong significant results. At ang maganda, we were awarded. And mind you, gentlemen, ladies, isang cluster lamang yan ng success stories, connectivity, linkages. But as I speak today, meron na tayong about 2,000 clusters. Meron na tayong about 2,000 clusters of hits. Meaning, multiple hits yan. Kamukha ng nakikita nyo dyan sa cluster na yan. Yan isang classic, pero unang success stories. Success story. But today, we have a lot of stories. Meron na tayong about 2,000 clusters of hits. What can possibly solve these cases? Ano kaya ang key? Ano kaya ang naging benchmark? Tao, we have trained personnel, we have skilled personnel, specialists, firearms examiners and ballisticians. We have processes, sustainable, and institutionalized, and we have the gadget. We have the firearms identification system. Altogether, people, processes, needed equipment. It's like a three-legged stool. It's like a three-legged stool where balance is matter. Best practices. mandatory examination of cases and submission of firearms identification of evidence. Naging policy na yan, inutos ng pamunuan ng PNP na lahat ng bullets, evidence bullets, cartridge cases, and even evidence firearms, kailangan i-test fire para makuna ng bullets, makuna ng test cartridge cases. Altogether, the evidence and the test to be encoded in the FIS. Naging kalakalan na yan ngayon. Best practices. At as a matter of fact, we have a lot of cases